Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, How Avanti Maps to CIS Controls Version 8. Quick intro for your presenters today. I am Robert Waters. I'm the lead product marketing manager for our exposure management category here at Avanti. That includes things like external attack surface management, risk-based vulnerability management, things of that nature. Joining me is Chris Gettle, our VP of Product Management for Endpoint Security. Chris, would you like to say hello?
Yeah, hello everyone. Welcome and thank you for having me join, Robert.
You bet. Thanks for being here. And then you can see all the way to the right, we have a special guest, David Pickering. He's my colleague on the product marketing team. He covers our service management portfolio. And he's a special guest because he is down under in Australia, where I think it's about 3 a.m. right now. So I did not want to coerce him into joining live. So we're going to show a little pre-recorded video he did for us during the demo segment that's going to help us out here today. So now getting to the meat of the content. Since today's session is focused on the CIS critical security controls, let's start with an overview of CIS, which is short for the Center for Internet Security. And according to legend, back in August of 2000, so almost a quarter century ago, a small group of business and government leaders met at the Cosmos Club in Washington, D.C. to discuss what was then a concerning rash of cyber attacks. And that meeting and others that followed after it led to the eventual formation of CIS, which is a community-driven nonprofit whose vision is to lead the global community to secure our ever-changing connected world. The CIS mission complements that vision. And as you can see on the slide there on the bottom left, their mission is to make the connected world a safer place by developing, validating, and promoting timely best practice solutions that help people, businesses, and governments protect themselves against pervasive cyber threats. And CIS carries out that mission by providing a variety of products and services. You can see them all listed on the right-hand side of this slide. And perhaps most notably of those products and services is the CIS critical security controls, which are the topic of today's discussion. So for the uninitiated, the CIS critical security controls, or CIS controls for short, are a recommended set of actions for cyber defense that provide specific and actionable ways to thwart the most pervasive attacks. And these defensive actions effectively provide what CIS refers to as a must-do, do-first starting point for every enterprise seeking to improve their cyber defense. All in all, there are 18 actions or controls that experts agree will both stop most attacks seen today and provide the framework for automation and systems management that will serve cyber defense well into the future. The original CIS controls were developed in 2008 by an international grassroots consortium that brought together companies, government agencies, institutions, and individuals from every part of the cybersecurity ecosystem. And since then, the CIS controls have evolved in response to evolving cyber threats. And we're now on version 8 of that document, which is what we're discussing today. And I'd be remiss if I did not mention that the CIS controls are completely free. So simply go out to the CIS website and you can download them there, both PDF and Excel format. So when you do download the CIS controls, these are the 18 controls that you will find, starting with inventory and control of enterprise assets and ending with penetration testing. You can see that each control is accompanied with some additional details. So first is the number of safeguards associated with each control. Safeguards is the term CIS uses for the different actions associated with each control. You also see information around IG1, IG2, and IG3. IG is short for implementation group. And you can think of the IG levels on a spectrum, with IG1 representing smaller orgs with less mature cybersecurity practices, and IG3 representing those larger enterprises with the more mature practices. And the numbers beside each IG level are then the number of safeguards within each control that are recommended for organizations that fall within each implementation group. And within the CIS controls document, you'll also find a range of other information that will aid in your efforts to adhere to the controls. Speaking of which, let's take a quick poll. So the question is going to be, does your organization adhere to the CIS controls or any legal, regulatory, and or policy framework that maps to or references the CIS controls? So for reference, the CIS controls map to most major compliance frameworks, such as the NIST cybersecurity framework, NIST 800-53, the ISO 27000 series, and then regulations like PCI DSS, HIPAA, NERC, CIP, and FISMA. So I'll go ahead and launch that poll, and we'll leave it open here for 30 seconds or so and let you get your responses in. So again, does your organization adhere to the CIS controls or any legal, regulatory, and or policy framework that map to or reference CIS controls, including those I listed, like the NIST CSF? So A, yes, we do today. B, no, we don't currently, but we plan to. C, we don't currently and don't plan to. And D, unsure. So I'll give it 5 more seconds there, and then we will close it out. All right, we got a mixed bag. So top of the list, 42.9%. Yes, we do today. That's great to see. I'm sure that's why you joined. No, we don't currently, but plan to. So we're looking at, roughly 70% of respondents who are adhering to CIS today or planning to, and then a few that are unsure. But that's great to see, and hopefully this information will be helpful for you. That brings us to the main point of this presentation, which is how Avanti solutions map to CIS controls V8. So in this table, you can see the first 9 CIS controls across the column headers at the top, and Avanti's 5 solution areas starting each row over on the left. The cells of the table specify which safeguard or safeguards associated with the control can be implemented using an Avanti solution. So for example, safeguards 7.3, 7.4, and 7.7 under Control 7, Continuous Vulnerability Management, can be implemented using capabilities within our Vulnerability Management and Response solution. Also, you'll notice some safeguards appear in bold red font. Those are the ones that we'll be demonstrating how to implement using Avanti solutions. Much as we'd love to run through all of the safeguards, this is only a 30-minute session. And now flipping to the next slide, you'll see we've also mapped our solution to controls 10 through 18. Again, those safeguards in bold red font are the ones we'll be demonstrating how to implement using Avanti solutions. On that note, let's talk demo. So for today's demo, we'll start by showing you how you can implement some of the safeguards under CIS Control 1, Inventory and Control of Enterprise Assets. Those safeguards with red arrows beside them are the ones we'll focus on in the demo, while those with gray arrows are ones Avanti offers capabilities for, but we won't have time to show in this session. Today, I'm going to play the role of security analyst, and I'll show you how Ivanti Neurons for External Attack Surface Management, or EASM, satisfies safeguard 1.5, use a passive asset discovery tool. From there, we'll move on to Control 7, Continuous Vulnerability Management. As you can see from the red arrow, we're going to focus on how you can implement Safeguard 7.7, Remediate Detected Vulnerabilities. To do that, I'll continue in my role as a security analyst here, and I'll show you some additional capabilities in Ivanti Neurons for EASM before jumping over to Ivanti Neurons for RBBM. And then I'll throw things over to my co-presenter, Chris, who will play my IT operations counterpart and demo Ivanti Neurons for patch management. And last but not least, on the demo front, my colleague Dave, who I mentioned before, will close out our demo by demonstrating how you can leverage Ivanti offerings to implement a range of safeguards that fall under CIS Control 17, Incident Response Management. So with that, let's go ahead and get started as I share my demo screen. hopefully you all are seeing that now. There we go, just popped up for me. Perfect. Okay, so as promised, I'll start by demoing how Avanti Neurons for EASM can be used to implement aspects of CIS Control 1, inventory and control of enterprise assets. So Control 1 is all about cyber hygiene. You can't protect what you can't see, right? And with EASM, what you see is every internet-facing external asset across your organization's attack surface. It's the hacker's view of your environment, if you will. And those assets are displayed here in this list view. And the way EASM finds them is through agentless monitoring. So agentless monitoring uncovers assets that evade detection by traditional discovery tools, as well as those not normally monitored by security teams. So think of things like misconfigured Amazon S3 buckets and forgotten marketing websites. And while that all sounds, pretty advanced, it's actually super easy to configure. So all you have to do is add a discovery seed to the product. And you can see here that there are multiple seed types available to choose from. You have domain, host, URL, API, NetBlock, ASN. We're just going to go ahead and select domain today. And then since I work for Avanti, I'd enter avanti.com. Or, if you're conducting a risk assessment on a subsidiary or an acquisition target or some other third party, maybe a potential, partner or vendor, you could enter their domain instead and do some third-party risk management. And from there, you just click Add Seed, and EASM will go out and start uncovering all external-facing assets associated with that domain. I'm going to be a good steward of domain or demo environment data today and click Cancel, but effectively, same idea here. Once you do that, shortly thereafter adding your domain or your discovery seed, the assets associated with that discovery seed will start popping up in this assets list view where you can drill down on them for additional details. So I'll go ahead and click on this one here since it has a lot of exposures associated with it. And when you drill down on an asset, you'll see information on those exposures associated with the asset. We see the list of them here, some critical, some highs. You'll also see tech stacks, so the technology and software stacks that are detected on the asset when that information is available. And you also get a who is record information for the domain associated with the asset. And that's going to tell you who owns the domain, their contact info, and when it was registered. So that's really how Avanti Neurons for EASM maps to CIS Control 1, inventory and control of enterprise assets. We're going to stay right here in EASM for the moment, but we're going to pivot to demoing for CIS Control 7, which is continuous vulnerability management. And for that, we need to look at the exposures page. So here, you will see all the vulnerabilities on your external attack surface. And these vulnerabilities can be fed into Avanti Neurons for RBVM, along with data from scanners and other sources so that you can conduct risk-based prioritization of all the vulnerabilities across your entire attack surface. So on that note, let's actually hop over to Avanti Neurons for RBVM. And while there's much to explore in RBVM, we're trying to stay on time and on task here. I know I'm running a little long, so we're going to navigate directly to the prioritization dashboard, which lets security analysts quickly observe remediation progress and easily determine where efforts should be directed. So for this demo scenario, we're going to use it as a springboard to create a list of vulnerabilities prioritized for remediation. And we'll do so through this open findings funnel on the left here, which aids in prioritization of high-risk findings. It's also one of the many visual queries in RBVM that lets users drill down for more detailed data. So for example, RCEPE here will take us to this host findings view with a filter applied so that only findings associated with remote code execution and or privilege escalation, are displayed. Even with that filter applied, we see there are still some findings here, some more findings than we really want to send to our IT ops team in one batch. Fortunately, though, in this product, you can see along the left side of the screen and also the top of the list view that we have lots more filtering options at our fingertips. So with just one click here on this KPI widget, we can further filter this list to show just those RCE PE findings that are also associated with ransomware. And now that we have a bit more manageable list, you see we got under 2,000 findings. Now we cut it in more than half. We now want to pass it to IT ops for patching. And Avanti is one of the few vendors that offers integrated risk-based vulnerability and patch management products. So that makes this a really easy process. All we have to do is select our findings, which I just did, and then add them to a patch group. And they will, from here, be ported directly to Ivanti Neurons for patch management. And you see we've already got our CIS webinar patch group here. I'll click that and add to patch group, go ahead. So with that process, that integration, there's no need to export a CSV and hand it off via Teams or Slack or email or some other channel, unless that's the way you prefer to do things. And with that, now that we've passed all our findings over to the patch product, I will also pass the demo over to Chris, who's playing the part of my IT ops counterpart.
Yeah, so thank you, Robert. What Robert was talking about, we've now seen the security persona, their role in saying, hey, here's the things that need to be prioritized. Now I'm going to be able to go over and show you the receiving end of that, which is the remediation side of those software vulnerabilities. Conveniently, today is also Patch Tuesday. So many of you are going to be embarking on this exact process and having to, let me see if I can get the right window to pop up here. Oh, it's going to make me go into a specific tab. All right, there's the right one. So on my screen now, you should see my Ivanti Neurons tenant. And in here, we're going to start in the patch intelligence side of the experience. So Robert had just selected a whole bunch of vulnerabilities that were actively being exploited. They've got known confirmed vulnerabilities, are potentially part of ransomware campaigns where there's malware taking advantage of that. We're going to be able to take this information and now be able to go in and see how this view the context in our tenant here. So patch intelligence, the default view here, you could see I've got a number of updates for different platforms, Mac, Windows, even Linux within here. I've got context of how many of these things have been detected in my environment. So several of these updates just came out yesterday. They could start popping up as being detected in my environment within a matter of hours of those updates coming in. Typically, our assessment returns back results every day for all machines that are responding. So that gives you an idea of what's in your environment. I could even filter this to say, only show me things that have actually been detected. You can see a number of things just flipped around on my dashboard. I'm now looking at an SLA view. And most importantly, one of the things that's unique about the Ivanti approach to patch management is we focus on known vulnerabilities and exposures, so that risk-based perspective is part of this out of the box. So you can see here I've got a number of things that have been detected in my environment. Many of those even could have, you'll see this little bug icon here. That is an update that has 42 CVEs total, but at least one of those is confirmed to be exploited. So let's go take a look at the patches that Robert sent over to me, basically the list of patches that I need to worry about. So we're going to go open that CIS webinar patch group that he passed over to me. And I'm going to unfilter this real quick. So here's the list of all the updates that those CVEs, if you remember, the number of CVEs passed over was somewhere around 1,900, but we actually have a slimmed down number of items in here because this is the actual patches that apply these CVEs or resolve them. If I scroll over, you can see, again, my risk data. It's showing me the number of CVEs that I've detected or that are a part of this update. It also shows me that bug icon because at least one of these CVEs is actively being exploited. So you can see most of that list Robert sent over to me are the really concerning vulnerabilities that are exposing our environment to a lot of risk. So let me drill into one of those real quick to show you some of the more depth of data coming out of our platform. So here you can see this was an update, the April OS update, this one specifically for the Windows 8 edition of Windows. There are 61 CVEs total being resolved. If we drill into the CVE level details, now I can see each of the CVEs. The VRR group, which this is VRR group and VRR score, is the RBVM platform's proprietary scoring grouping and scoring algorithm. You can see the date that that exploit was published on. So in April, when this was first released, it was not being exploited, but after April, on May 4th, this actually was taken advantage of using a DOS attack. And after that date, the score would have changed for that particular vulnerability. You can see there's some additional vulnerabilities here that are exploited as well. I've got another one here that's a privilege escalation, a remote code execution, and another remote code execution. So those have confirmed exploits that have been detected in the wild as well. We pulled this information from over 100 different sources, including several different watering holes on the dark web, to give you as much information as possible. All right, so let's go take a look at a couple of other areas of the patch management experience. There is our endpoint vulnerability view. So the patch view, the patch intelligence view, is giving me that patch perspective. This is telling me which updates do I need to worry about. Now we've switched over to the context of the specific machines in my environment, how many of those are missing updates, what's the risk score for each of those, and when's the last time they were last assessed, last deployed to. You can even see that I've got a patch install that occurred for one of these devices earlier today. So as Patch Tuesday continues to roll around, you can see yesterday there were some updates going on as well. There were some third-party updates yesterday. Today we've got the Patch Tuesday update rolling around, but somebody did do an assessment and a deployment to at least one machine already. As my maintenance rolls out, you'll see a lot more machines will start to populate scan data. So that can happen very quickly, and it's very continuous. The devices themselves, we can go into a device and we can see a lot of information about the individual updates that are applicable to this machine, that affect this machine. So in my device view, I've got the patches that were detected here. In this case, this particular device is missing 3 different versions of .NET and a Microsoft C++ redistributable, and then the May 29th OS update. So this machine's a little bit behind. It hasn't got its updates since last month, and that's what's adding a bit of risk here. Now, the good news is you can see that several updates that did have confirmed exploits against them, I've already remediated those. So that's a good view of the individual machines there. But rather than looking at individual machines, let's go look at more of a compliance level view of our environment. So compliance reporting is an experience that allows you to look at either your entire organization or specific parts of your organization to get a compliance level understanding of what's going on. Now, traditionally, compliance would have been maintenance based. So the way we used to do this across the industry was, today again being Patch Tuesday would have been the start of my maintenance window. And whether my maintenance time frame was 30 days or 14 days or whatever time frame it would be start to finish, I would start to measure from Patch Tuesday and determine compliance based on, did I complete everything within that maintenance window? Well, the world has evolved. We need to respond to threats much more frequently. So we've adjusted how we measure compliance to better fit how organizations are having to do this. And this is one of the differentiators about this. Many of our customers who have moved into the Ivanti Neurons cloud-based experience are shifting here because of that risk-based perspective and because of the way we've shifted to how we track things like compliance within an environment. Your security team, for those of you who are on the security side, this would be you as well, you start calculating compliance based on when a vulnerability was first discovered or when an update became available, because you need to understand the exposure time, the total amount of time that your organization is at risk. So we've shifted from maintenance type compliance reporting into risk-based compliance reporting. And out of the box, that's what Ivanti Neurons is calculating. So we're going to go into my AMS Showcase compliance report. I could see over time, on specific dates and times, what was the number of devices in this particular group, how many of those devices were compliant, and how many were non-compliant. And again, this is calculating based on not a device at the start of a maintenance window, but on two different KPIs. There is the time frame, or the amount of time I want to, or that I would allow a machine to be missing an update before it needs to be compliant. So maybe I select 14 days for that. And then my compliance threshold. So I need to be 95% compliant to reach my compliance threshold and be deemed to be in continuous compliance. So that machine has kind of a moving calculation. Each of these machines have a different set of patches on them. If that machine is not compliant, it's because at a device level, we've looked at all of the patches. So that one, it's because we haven't actually scanned anything. Let me go find a machine that's got better details. All right, let's go into this one here. All right, so in here, I've got all the updates that have been applied to the system. You can see the release date of that update, the number of days since release, and the date that the patch was installed on. Now, if I said 14 days was my compliance threshold, the calculation is going to be how many days from release date to install date did I have, and did that meet my compliance KPI? If a machine is scanned today and we detect all of the new updates, the OS update, any additional ones like Office, Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, all of those are expected today. If I detect a machine with all of those, technically it's still in compliance today because all of those updates just released. As my maintenance window progresses further, each of those updates are going to be calculated individually to see if they meet my compliance threshold. If they fall outside of that, so let's say I deployed my OS update and my Office update, but I didn't do Chrome in time, 14 days since the release comes out, that particular patch will show as non-compliant. If there was an update from April that still had not been deployed, that would be showing as non-compliant. So each of these patches are individually calculated to make that compliance report match more particularly exactly how we're measuring compliance within our organizations today. So that is a quick overview of the Ivanti Neurons patch experience. We showed you how easy it is to take the security team's input, pass that directly through and start doing remediation, and the different levels of visibility we can give you from a patch-wide perspective saying, here's everything that we need to do, that endpoint vulnerability perspective, seeing the devices and what exactly needs to be done there, and then that compliance level view. Now, obviously, there's additional capabilities here like the policies and settings that I can configure, even things like reboot where we can adjust when and how reboots would occur, into things like deployment history if I'm going to do some troubleshooting around a patch that may have failed. All of that information is available in here. But again, based on time today, we've got one more set of demos to show you. So on that note, Robert, I'll pass it back to you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Chris. So yeah, if you want to stop sharing, then I will hop back to the slides here. And I know we're actually at time, but we've got about 5 minutes left. So if you need to drop, go ahead. We'll get the recording to you, but we're going to keep going and forging ahead here for about 5 more minutes. So I'm going to go ahead as promised and tee up the recording for CIS Controls 17 and how we map to that.
So we're going to look at how Avanti handles incident response management. And here we are within the Ivanti Neurons for ITSM solution. And we can see we've got a dashboard that's giving us information around security events and security incidents. Let's have a look at the events. So these events come from external solutions. So it could be from our risk-based vulnerability management solution. It could be from another solution through an API. It could be coming from a monitoring solution. And we look at those events that come in and we document all the information around that particular event. We prioritize that through a severity and risk score, and we determine what we want to do from that point of view. Now, in this particular scenario, we've got a remote code execution vulnerability that could potentially allow someone to execute arbitrary code on that device. Now, because it's a high-risk vulnerability, we've deemed that we're going to automatically go and create a security incident to be managed across that. And that security incident gets logged with the information that we have against that event. So let's have a look at that security incident. Now, here we are within the security information. So the security incident's been logged with exactly the same information that we had from the event, and we've allocated that to a team at this point. We have our SLAs around response targets and resolution times. Now, we may deem, as we look at that it's a potential data breach. So we're going to just update a little bit of information, and just for highlighting this record, we're going to say we want that potential data breach, and we're going to change our categorization to that as well. Now, as we went through doing that, on the right-hand side, we start to look at proactive information. So are there other security incidents that might be related to this particular type of incident? We can see there are vulnerability of other security incidents logged. But we also document what we need to do. So in this case, because it's a data breach, we might have rules around how do we handle data breach notifications. In this case, we've got that documented for our overview, our process, our policies, etc. And we can also have what's our incident response policy. So we've got that automatically allocated against that particular incident, so we know how to handle the incident and it's documented. Now, as part of the security incident, not only have we tracked the event that it came from, but we also start to allocate automatically tasks that are related to data breaches. And the first task that gets allocated is determining if it's confidential or sensitive data has been involved. And as we go through that gets allocated to the security team, and someone can accept that and work through that particular area. Now, they might deem, yes, it's a sensitive data breach and we want to keep this confidential. And in doing that, that then triggers other things that need to happen behind the scenes, aligned with what our security response policies are. Now, what we see within that, so we've determined it's a data breach, we've determined there's sensitive data being breached, we've automatically, as part of our process, determined who needs to be notified to work on this. So we've now created tasks and allocated those out to legal, PR, and security to go and work against this. So what does legal need to know? How do we handle this from a PR perspective? And obviously we need security to try and rectify this particular issue. And we can also, because we've marked this confidential, we can start to limit who's got access to this information. So we might say, we don't want everyone seeing what's going on. So we can start to just allocate that out to particular individuals and ensure that they're the only ones who get see that information. Now, the other thing is, if it's an external provider, we can also go and add that external provider to the system. So we can say, all right, we need someone to go and look at that, and we want Microsoft to go and look at our potential data breach. Sent off to Microsoft to go and resolve or work with the local team to go and try and rectify this issue. And that task is allocated out to the team. So that's how we go through the process of handling incident response management within the Avanti platform.
Perfect. All right. Thanks again to our special guest, Dave, there for submitting that recording ahead of time. And hopefully you're back to seeing the slides here. Because if you are, just wanted to cover that. Obviously, we didn't have time to demo all the capabilities in Avanti's portfolio that map to CIS controls today, but that information actually does exist. It's publicly available, and you can find it in the PDF that shares a name with this webinar within the resource section of the On24 platform. So look for how Avanti maps to CIS controls version 8 right in your browser right now, and you can find that and get all the information you need. So make sure you download a copy of that so you can return it or return to it for the future. or share it with your team, whatever you want to do. And on that note, that just brings us to Q&A. And again, I know we're over, so thanks to everyone who has stuck it out. And we do have a few Q&A questions here I'll go ahead and tackle. So the first is Avanti affiliated with CIS? No, we're not, but we just, we know this is an important framework that a lot of companies use, as evidenced by our poll. And so we want to provide, the information needed to help them adhere to those frameworks. So we do similar exercises around, the NIST cybersecurity framework, things of that nature, just as sort of a value add for customers. Another question. I saw EASM had VRS scores and RBVM had VRR scores. What's the difference? Eagle Eye, great catch. So in EASM, we have VRS, that's vulnerability risk scores. And in RBVM, we have VRR, vulnerability risk rating. And the difference is very little. VRS is a little newer, a little more advanced. It has some elements in there like EPSS predictability that we don't quite have in VRR yet, but we will be standardizing across our different functions and modules, EASM, RBVM, to VRS. So that will be, at a certain point, go forward, the score we'll be using. And then does EASM integrate with other Neurons products? So it's currently residing on our Neurons platform. We don't have any direct integrations with other Neurons products at the moment, but that is certainly a roadmap item, and that is coming. So another great question. And with that, thank you very much for joining us. That is a wrap. Appreciate your time and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Wonderful. Thanks all. Bye-bye.